Hey guys, it's Magnet back for some more Community Starcraft 2. Today we're going to be taking a look at some TvT openers that I have kind of cooked up here in the last little while. I'm sorry if it's for the huge break between videos, but there's been a lot of really crazy stuff going on. But yeah, in the meantime I've kind of been practicing these openers and making sure that they make sense for the people that will be watching this. Now I should preface this really quickly. You're not going to see these openers too terribly often in like pro matches or whatever, because I wanted to construct openers that are really safe in this very strange time of TvT. TvT in general is a very all-in-y, very cheesy kind of matchup right now, and there's a lot of different things that you need to protect against that a lot of builds just kind of don't, unless you have just superior control. So these are going to be builds that you really should not die with. Basically, no matter what your opponent does, they're going to check against everything like Reapers, Banshees, one base tank all-in, stuff like that. You'll be able to hold pretty much all of them if you control correctly. So this will just give you guys some options as far as what you can do in TvT. So, as is listed here, the first one's going to be a Two-barracks gasless expand, which is basically just constant marine production with an expansion down pretty much as soon as we can afford it without being too risky. And the second one's going to be a gas versus helion that does a little bit better against Reaper builds, especially Reaper, like, 6, 8, 10 Reapers, which you will see on the ladder from time to time. So basically all I'm going to be doing with these openers is just eliminating the possibility of dying to something gimmicky, assuming you run them properly. But I should warn you that you're not going to see these builds too terribly often outside of this kind of an example, because other people rely on their control or they just take risks like that, and I don't want you guys to feel like these builds will have led you astray. So let's go ahead and jump into the game here. Make sure that I still know my keys. Okay, yeah, I do. We'll play on Newkirk Precinct, I guess. Not really a reason why. Guess just kind of switch things up just a little bit. And we will get going here. I'm just going to go against a very easy Terran just because we want to make sure that we're running our build and not have to focus on really anything else here. So you guys can do the same thing as well. We'll go ahead and get started. Let me change these colors a little bit, just for fun. I think they're going to show up different in the replay. I don't know. We'll find out. And yeah, we'll go from there. So basically the theme to these builds is we know all the timings as far as when stuff can show up, and we're going to be able to check against all those things. And I'll tell you guys the timings during games or in replays or whatever. The timings are pretty solid. So I'm going to go ahead and start off here. And like with any opener, we do want to make SCVs right away. Don't stop any SCVs unless the build specifically calls for it. And if I remember correctly, neither of these builds actually ask for that, so I just have them running as far as by feel by now. So I'll review all the supplies and everything as they come up. Now we're going to go ahead and make SCVs up to till 10. So the 9th SCV is in queue right now. You want to queue up a 10th. And as soon as you queue up a 10th, just send this guy over to your wall. He'll be able to build the depot as soon as he gets there. Some good old classic Starcraft 2 Terran music playing in the background right now, so I hope you guys can hear that as loudly as I can. Start your depot as soon as the guy gets there. Since this is going to be a gasless expand, you're not going to take gas until after your until after your command center is down. So we will be showing you the entire build here. Queue up to 12 SCVs like we usually do, so we're at 11 right now, 12 is in queue. The depot should finish, and this guy will have nothing to do for just a second while he waits for the funds for a barracks. So let's do some fun stuff, put him on patrol, whatever we need to do. But as soon as he's ready, go ahead and start that barracks so that you can wall off at your wall here. You can use this same building positioning if you want. It's not terribly important at TvT, but it is still pretty good practice. My minerals are off by just a little bit. You can tell the SCVs don't mine exactly the same every single game, so if yours are off just a tiny bit at this point, no big deal. You may lose like a second or so, but not the biggest deal in the world. Now when you're on 14 supply, go ahead and rally the next worker down here. He's going to build your second barracks. And we're just going to be doing non-stop marine production off these barracks for a long time, just to give you guys a ton of units in order to maintain the expansion that you're going to be putting up. So second barracks goes up here, and then you're going to go ahead and continue to queue SCVs up to 16, at which point that's when you're going to start your orbital. You can also start a depot with this guy to close off your wall and to make sure you have enough supply for everything. So barracks is done, marine should start as soon as that's done as well, and you should barely have enough minerals in order to start this. I might not have exactly that because, again, the SCV's AI is just a little bit weird sometimes as far as mining consistently, so a couple seconds behind, but not the biggest of deals. So we're just going to go non-stop marine off of these bunkers here, And we're going to continue to do that for quite a little while. I'll show you guys when to put the command center down. You can go ahead and send this guy back to the mineral line. So continue to make SCVs and continue to make, or rather when the orbital finishes, continue to make SCVs. Drop your mule, continue to make Marines off of these barracks. And you can actually rally your Marines to the ramp here. I'll show you why here in just a second. At about 300 minerals at 21 supply, start thinking about pulling this guy down to start your command center down here. So again, continue to do your best as far as hitting Marines and hitting SCVs exactly at the time that they need to be built. This is the time we're going to stop SCVs for just a little while. I'll show you why. Okay, our command center's down, and we're going to actually cancel this SCV because we need to. And we're going to build a supply depot. And then we're going to pull another SCV in order to build a bunker down here. You can move your Marines down just a little further. Looks like we do have supply for one more SCV, so we'll go ahead and start that, putting us at 27. And you want to get your gases up right now as well. Now we're going to prioritize Marines here while we're supply blocked. Or actually, it's not going to matter. Everything's going to line up pretty well. So we are all done with that. Now this SCV that built the first depot, you're going to want to keep him out here in order to build another one, because you are going to need that like basically right away. So continue up on your SCV and your Marine production for a little while. Once this guy's done, make sure you send him back. And let's check our timings here. And we're going to want to continue on the SCVs. And as soon as you get 100 gas, you're going to want to drop a factory so that you can get a tank out and hold off whatever needs to be held. Go ahead and drop your Marines in the bunker there. This guy can go ahead and build the factory. Once he's done with his second depot, you can see the timings line up pretty well. And the timings are just a little bit rocky in this build because it is a little bit unorthodox. They're typically timed out to be running better with a 1 barracks expand. But the reason we want 2 is just for this heavy Marine production. So you can see we have a lot of Marines out right now. And then when you have the money, when this factory is started, go ahead and start an engineering bay. And we'll explain what that's for in just a second. Again, continue up on your Marine production, but when your factory's about halfway done, drop a tech lab on your second barracks. We can go ahead and transfer workers now. And make sure to land your mules at your natural. It is better to land them at a new base, just so that you can mine pretty equally throughout the game. So our factory and our tech lab should line up to be done at pretty much the same time. Continue your Marines here, but you want to swap the factory onto the tech lab. Now while that's floating over there, we're going to go ahead and make a tank, but you more importantly want to make a couple of turrets at each base. Now these turrets are just a tad late for a Cloak Banshee timing, so you're going to have to use your Marines just a little bit and maybe use some scans in order to hold off any Cloak Banshee play. But this is just going to be for later in the game, so that if you lose too many Marines, you won't actually die to any Cloak Banshees. Once our starport's done, I think we're going to go ahead and stop. I think I'm going to miss a depot here. And typically with these depots, once you're on 2 bases, you usually want to do them 2 at a time. Make sure we get our workers working here. And it's okay to stop Marines here for just a little while because we actually need to prioritize other things like tanks, like our turrets. We already have a ton of Marines here, and there's not a ton of pushes that'll come out at this time, so you're in pretty good shape. Now once the starport is done, my depots were just a tad late, delaying my tanks for just a second, but not too big of a deal. Once the starport's done, go ahead and make a Viking. And I think we're actually going to stop the build here because this is where it starts to deviate. So let's go ahead and watch the replay so we can see everything that's going on. Like I said, these builds are pretty unorthodox, and they're unorthodox for a reason. That reason is that, I mean, if you encounter a lot of different builds in TvT that are really hard to hold off, this build plans specifically against that. It plans against any Reaper play, it plans against Cloak Banshees, as we could see the Viking and we had turrets up. It also plans against a lot of 1 base Marine Marauder plays or stuff like that. With a bunker that you can always repair, and a ton of Marines actually. It's quite a bit of Marines. You'd be surprised at how much that can hold off in TvT considering how long it takes to walk across the map. I'm sorry for these silly little glitches right here. It's been a bug in Battle.net for quite a while. I don't know why they're taking their sweet time to fix it. We're going to go ahead and jump into the replay of the last game like we usually do. So let's see here. We want recent and we want to watch solo. Okay, a couple timings you want to take care of. The first timing is the timing of Reapers. If they do a normal Reaper play, the fastest a Reaper can be on your mineral line, which is your biggest concern, is about 4 minutes and 20 seconds. By the time 4 minutes and 20 seconds rolls around, we should actually have 3 or 4 Marines, and that's way more than enough to push away a Reaper. So, not too big of a deal there. So again, just to review the build, send out your 9th worker in order to make your supply depot while your 10th worker is building, so you can drop it as soon as he gets there. Fast forward through the boring parks, and I'm sure you've seen this plenty of times by now. Now when this is done, you can see my SCVs are kind of clumping a little weird here, so that's why my mining was a little bit off. There's been a couple of them idle or wandering back and forth. That's why I'm missing some minerals here. You can micro that if you know how to, but not the biggest of deals. So again, drop your barracks on 12, and your second barracks is going to be on 15, but we rally our 14th worker down there in order to build it, just for the sake of consistency and for the sake of smoothness. So let's check that 420 timing for when a Reaper can be in our base, assuming they open pretty normal. That's if they build their barracks at home and they send the Reaper across the map. 420 is about the fastest you're going to see one. So we still have SCVs coming out here. Again, you can queue up the depot once you get the money. After your barracks is down, so the depot should come down. The Marine should come down as soon as the barracks is done. So there we go. And from here, you're going to wait for money in order to build your orbital command on 17. That's, let's see, 16 SCVs, because there is one Marine in queue. And the important part here is to be sure that you're keeping up your Marines, you're keeping up your SCVs, because that's really going to be what keeps you safe for quite a while. We'll discuss other timings here, but I want to focus on this 420 in just a second. I think we're going to barely have 4 Marines out by the time that comes down. Now again, with this guy right here, you can send him back to mine, or you can actually just have him sit down here at the natural so he's ready to build the command center. Either way, if you actually just watch his path, I think he makes 1 or 2 trips before I pull another one before his command center starts. So it's not the biggest of deals if you just send him straight down there. Yeah, and I think he made 1 trip and I pulled the exact same one by coincidence. So, we're coming up on 420, and if they were opening Reaper, you'd basically have your command center started, as well as, looks like we have 4 Marines and 2 more in production. More importantly, this build is going to be really good against a proxy Reaper play. So if they proxy like a Reaper out here, the Reaper's going to get there a little bit earlier than 420, obviously, since he doesn't have to walk across the entire map. But you're going to have plenty of production to hold that off. This will also do pretty well against stuff like proxy Marauder. You're pretty much safe against any early cheese here, and your command center is still really fast. It's not command center first, it's not 1 racks expand timing of command center, but it's still pretty darn fast. So that's the reason I wanted to show this build off, is for this first stage of safety. I'm going to show you guys another little variation that you can throw in there if you have some trouble. Right about now, you actually can scout if you want to, and remember that we are pausing SCVs. I would actually pause it on 27. I should have just let this other one continue going because I misread my supply for a second. And on 27 is when you're going to stop SCVs for a little while so you can get your bunker up, and so you can get your gases mining as soon as possible. So this stage of the game is basically, I need to transition into holding something crazy like a Marine SCV all in, which is pretty rare in TvT because it really just shouldn't work against a wall like this. But the whole point after this is to get a tank up and to get your Viking out as soon as possible. Another thing you can do, the second timing we're going to watch out for that's really common in TvT is a Cloak Banshee timing, and the fastest the Cloak Banshee can be at your base is about 7 minutes. So if you want, these Marines will handle quite a bit for quite a long time. When your second set of mules come down, you can actually wait and save scans, and that was actually after this command center finishes. You'll notice I have 2 mules ready to go. But yeah, we'll show that in just a second. You can save scans if you're worried about a Cloak Banshee and just use your Marines to chase the Banshee down. You might lose Marines, but ultimately that's the point of the engineering bay coming up, so you have so you can put up turrets in your mineral line. So again, the path of this worker was to create a supply depot here, another one there, and you can review the supply timings if you want to, either in previous parts of this video, but his path is basically depot, factory. So those should all be right on time as well. And by this time you can see we have a lot of Marines out. We have 12 Marines with 2 more on the way, so 14 Marines at 6 minutes. It's going to hold off a lot of stuff, especially with this bunker here. Yeah, let's keep going. So there's the engineering bay. You might say this isn't going to quite line up to that 7-minute Cloak Banshee timing, and that's totally true, because as we can see if we click on the buttons here, engineering bay takes 35 seconds to build, and a turret takes about 25 seconds to build. We're going to be pretty darn close if we get everything on time. So if as soon as this is done you have the money to drop turrets, You might have to buy just a little bit of time with your Marines, but you should be in pretty good shape. And this was about the time when you're going to want to think about saving scans as well, if you don't have all this stuff running perfectly. So maybe you can think once this command center is done, wait to drop mules until after your turrets are done. It's another little adjustment you can do in-game. So again, start a tech lab on this barracks when your factory is about halfway done. You can see they line up pretty much perfectly. Land your factory on top of the tech lab and start a tank as soon as possible. This one tank is going to be invaluable in order to hold off a lot of one base all-ins with Marine Marauder, for example. And it'll also transition into the next stage of the game, which is basically a lot of tanks versus a lot of tanks. So you can see in this replay my turrets are a little bit late. They're only late because I'm prioritizing my tank here, and again, you can make those alterations if you need to. You can stop and save a couple of Marines in order to get a faster turret up. You could also just keep one turret here and not make a turret here and just put a couple Marines back in the mineral line. Because most of the time, like if you see in the architecture on this map, you can just guess the Banshee fly paths. So if the Banshee's like making here, for example, it's obviously going to come in here because it's a lot closer. So there's a lot of different room for variation here. The other important part is make sure your starport is down as soon as you have the money and as soon as your turrets are up. This is just going to get a Viking out for many different reasons. For one, to spot any tanks that might be down here, you're going to have a spotting advantage. And the second, to be pushing away any sort of crazy mass Banshee, or if they position a Banshee in somewhere annoying, like hitting your depots or hitting your production buildings or something, so that you can just push those away regularly throughout the game. That's pretty much it. From this point, you're going to start stockpiling a little bit of resources. You can drop a tech lab here and start stim. You can make extra factories if you want to go into mech. You can start +1. There's a lot of different things you can do from here. But more importantly, we're at 33 SCVs, 15 Marines, 1 tank at about 8 minutes. It's pretty solid for TvT. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into the next one, which is going to be that gas first into helion, which you can see there as well. And that'll protect against pretty much the same things. It's a little weaker against Reaper, especially Proxy Reaper, but the idea behind the Hellions is that the Reaper pushes will not sustain themselves, considering your Hellions are going to be coming out a lot. And the second most important thing is that it will absolutely crush Cloak Banshee plays. So you'd really just want to, whoops, went into the wrong screen there. You really just want to be sure that your openers are safe against pretty much anything your Terran opponent can do. So let's go to the same map again, just for consistency's sake. And this is, again, is going to be gas first. And what that means is gas before barracks. And you'll see the different advantages and disadvantages, and you can play to however is comfortable for you. And I do like to leave you guys a lot of freedom in these openers so that you can choose the little different options that you want to play. But I kind of want to just give you guys a good path and then educate you on the different little weave-in, weave-out points of that path so you can make your own decisions as you get more comfortable. So yeah, this one's different as well. This one we're not going to be walling because there's not too much of a sense in walling if you have Hellions. Your Hellions are faster than pretty much any unit they can field, so you can get back and forth really fast if you absolutely need to. Secondarily, it's just going to help your build run a little smoother because this is a really tight build in the sense that you need every second on your side in order to help this build run. Part of the reason is just that you need those Hellions out like immediately if you're getting attacked by Reapers, and you will need pretty much every SCV working just to be sure you get your depots and your Marines and everything out on time that need to be done. So we're not going to rally forward on the 9th SCV because we're not going to be making a wall. So when you're at 100 minerals, just pull one of your SCVs from the line and just build a depot there. And this guy's path, he's also going to build your geyser, so you can just queue it up. So we're on 11 SCVs right now. You can tell this guy to build the geyser as soon as he's done with the depot. So if you just tell him to build the geyser, he will just walk over there and do it when it's time. And you should just have enough for another SCV as soon as this comes up. And there we go. Our barracks is going to be on 13 supply. I'll show you that in just a second. Not really a whole lot to say right here. We're just waiting for that 13 supply, and I'm accidentally stacking my CVs a little bit more than I need to, so that'll hurt me just a tad, but no big deal. So we're going to go ahead and build our barracks on 13. Drop it over there for whatever reason. We're going to have a little bit of a gap in SCV production here, which is okay, because we want to make sure that we have everything down on time. Where is this guy going? Wow. That worker AI. Pretty random. Okay, so we'll continue to make SCVs here. Since your barracks is going to be later, your orbital command is also going to be just a tad later, which is okay. The whole point here is just to get tech up as quick as possible, whereas before we were just trying to get a command center up really fast. and safely as well. I should probably mention that. So 17 supply is going to be when your orbital command comes up, but you can also make a Marine out of here if you want to, and it's probably best to, so we're going to do that. Now this SCV is going to be the same one that drops your factory, so just drop it right next to the barracks so you don't have to cover too much territory. And go ahead and start a Marine. And we'll get this orbital as soon as we have the money. There we go. And we're almost supply blocked right now, so we need to just save a little bit of money and build that supply depot as soon as we can. It's not like there's much else to do right now anyway, and I would actually just stay on the one Marine for the time being, because we need to make sure we get everything up on time. Okay, we will wait for this to start.
Upgrade complete.
More importantly, we want to start our starport as soon as this is done as well. So that's why we really can't afford the Marine right now. And we will restart Marines here in just a second. So start a helion as soon as this is done, and then start your starport as well. So you can see we're just barely lining up even after skipping that Marine. So go ahead and start another Marine as soon as your helion is started as well. We're hitting that 420 timing. This would be the time when your Marine and your SCVs would have to fight the Reaper for just a second, but once the helion comes out, it's pretty much held. Okay, another depot and a second geyser as soon as you have that available. And we'll start another helion. And we are missing Marines here once again, but the Marines aren't the important part of this build. We're just going to kind of toss them in as we can afford it. Our supply depot is not really late. There's a little bit of a hiccup in this build, which is going to happen in pretty much any gas first opener. Start a tech lab on your starport as soon as that's done. Fill up your geyser. We'll go up to a fourth helion as well. And we need another depot with this guy, so we will continue that. And we're almost lining up. We want a Raven immediately after that tech lab is done. So once that tech lab is done, you're going to have your, what's this, your third helion, and there's going to be 3 Marines out. Drop a tech lab on your factory as well. And on this barracks, you can put whatever you want on there. We'll put a reactor for that sake. Okay, so we have a decent amount of units. They're pretty strong units as well, so that's kind of the whole theme behind this. Our Raven's almost done. As soon as our Raven's done, we're going to start a Viking, but more importantly, we probably want to start a tank. And I should go ahead and mention right now that this is a safer opener than the previous one we were just talking about. So you can start your command center now. Now, as soon as we have the money, we're going to go ahead and get that Viking out. And we are almost supply blocked right now, so you might need to supply drop right here. I've always had to. I haven't found a good way around it quite yet. So you can supply drop right there, but if you can find another way around it without being too risky, then that's safe. That's okay as well. Notice the Cloak Banshee timing. It's about 7 minutes right now, and we should have a Raven and a Viking done in just a second. You can actually just rally the Viking to the Raven. And there we go. Okay, that's pretty much it for this opener. Let's go ahead and check out the replay so I can explain the intricacies of this. This build also transitions into a lot more tech plays, much better than the previous one. You can especially start Blue Flame on your factory pretty early, so you can get Blue Flame Hellions or Blue Flame Hellbats up. And again, we have to wait for this silly glitch, so we will get this going as soon as that glitch clears. But again, the whole reason behind these openers is just to be able to open it up in a way that's safe, that you can react to pretty much anything that they're going to do on one base, and so you can get your command center down at a decent time and get into the next stage of the game. Frankly, the gas first opener is going to be a lot more mid and late game oriented, whereas the Marine opener is going to be a little bit more early and mid game oriented in the sense that you won't have as fast of tech. You're going to have a little bit different progression in the options. And I think that glitch is cleared, so let's go ahead and get started. Watch me have chosen the wrong one and have to reload the replay. That would be silly. Okay, so again, there's no reason to wall in this build because your Hellions and Marines will do quite well. The other reason is that if your Hellions are positioned right here, whoops, I'll just keep this going. If your Hellions are positioned right here along with your Marines, if anything tries to walk up this ramp, it's going to be really clumped and all these Hellions are going to nail it. And you do kind of want the space to spread your Hellions out a little bit while you still have a high ground advantage. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and start the depot on 10 as soon as we have the minerals for it. Our 11th SCV should be in queue immediately afterward. We'll have the money for it. And again, this guy is going to be the one that builds your geyser, so just send him over there as soon as that's done. And we'll continue SCVs here. And make sure that everything is flowing correctly. So far, not too much to do. Again, 13 barracks as soon as you can afford it. You should be able to afford an SCV right here when this one finishes. If not, you might have a couple second gap because, again, the worker AI can be a little funny. As you can see, he just walked to some random spot right there. So yeah, not too big of a deal. A couple seconds won't kill you, but if you can avoid it, that would be most helpful. So again, this guy is going to be the guy that builds our factory. As soon as he's done with the barracks, you just go ahead and start a factory. You can put them all right next to each other. It doesn't make too big of a difference, but the idea here is that you want to cover as minimal area as possible. Start your orbital as soon as you have the money when your barracks finishes, and you can start your marine immediately after that as well. And then the depot right here on 18 is really important. If you miss that depot, you're in a lot of trouble. Make sure you get that one down. Okay, so the job of this one marine. If you get hit by a Reaper, your Helion's going to be just a tad late. The job of this one Marine is just to put some damage on that Reaper and make him think twice about fighting for too long. The Marine will buy you a good 10-15 seconds worth of time, and by that time your Helion should pop out right away. So that's kind of the logic behind getting that one Marine there. If he dies, it's not at the end of the world, especially against a Reaper play, because your Helions are going to completely dominate Reapers throughout the game, assuming you keep up on their production. So when that's done, start a Helion right away. You can see the production time on a Helion is about 30 seconds. We clock the Reaper at about 420, so there's going to be a little bit of a gap between when your Helion is done and when the Reaper could be hitting your base, and that's the point of this one Marine. So again, start your starport as soon as that is ready. And we do need this depot here on 24. You can get it a tad earlier, assuming you're hitting everything there, but it shouldn't cause too much of a trouble. And again, start your second gas as soon as your third depot goes down. So we'll continue SCVs here. We will pause on a Marine for just a second because our supply depot is just a touch late. Start a tech lab on this starport right afterwards because you want that Raven right away to be able to detect cloak banshees. And you want that Raven to build energy throughout the course of the game. So if he does some kind of one-base attack, you can drop seeker missiles on his tanks. You can use PDD if there's a lot of marauders. There's a lot of different things you can do with that Raven. So again, when this factory is done producing its third Helion, drop a tech lab because you want to get a tank out right away. And I would say this build is actually a lot better than the previous one that we talked about against like one base tank all-ins. If they do like a Marine tank all-in, your tank's going to be a lot faster. There is a small gap in gas here, which we can't really help too much, but that's okay. Just continue to spend your money, and if your command center goes down at about 6:30, so we can see we have the money for it, then that's really good timing, especially for this kind of tech-heavy opener. One other option you can play that I haven't gone to yet is that if you're confident as far as holding things off with Marines, and if you build an engineering bay and you build some turrets, you can go for a Cloak Banshee play off of this opener, because you can see when the starport finished we had about 200 gas, just because that's how much the Raven costs, and that's the same cost for one Banshee and for Cloak. So there is another option here in order to go for Cloak Banshees instead of this defensive play. Defensive play is going to be a lot safer, especially against any harassment type of builds, because your command center is going to be earlier, you're going to have the tech to stop any harassments that you might have to deal with, and more importantly, this Raven is going to do things like detect mines that might get dropped in your base, but it building energy is going to be really important in order to hold things off. As you can see, Seeker Missile is only 75 energy. You have a Seeker Missile available at about 7 minutes, so if you absolutely need that against like a big Marine clump or tanks or stuff like that, you can drop that. But yeah, that's pretty much the opener. As you can see, the Cloak Banshee timing is about 7 minutes. You can also use a auto turret on the Raven in order to hold the Banshee if you want to, but when the Viking comes out, that basically says Cloak Banshee openers are not going to do anything to me. So yeah, I hope you guys are okay with those two openers. They're a little bit confusing and there's a lot to know about early game TvT, but rest assured, if you just write the timings down on these builds and if you practice them a lot, and you go on ladder with these builds, you should be really safe against pretty much anything your Terran opponent can do. Whether it's proxies, whether it's Reaper play, whether it's Cloak Banshees, Helion drop, anything like that, you'll be totally fine against all those kinds of different openers, assuming you control your units correctly against all that, and assuming you run the build correctly and all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, TvT is kind of a tumultuous matchup right now. It's hard to know what your opponent's going to do, and it's hard to find a good stable build I believe these two are really stable, particularly for, you know, like bronze through diamond leagues. You'll be absolutely fine with these builds. So let me know down in the comments if you're having any troubles or if you think the builds can be improved in any way. I'd love to hear the discussion. Check out our sponsors, by the way, which definitely help us out. SC2ReplayStats.com, Allstate, Propel Zero, and of course down at the bottom right you can check out my gaming team or my stream, which was twitch.tv/MagnetSC2. And that's it for the openers for Terran. After this we're going to get into unit compositions and general game strategies, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys then.